Две. Одна. Ноль. Сброс. Полевой столб, поднимающийся с земли, быстро увеличился в объеме.
Big Ivan, Vanya, the Tsar Bomba. These are all nicknames of the largest nuclear weapon known to mankind, capable of creating a blast strong enough to cause earthquakes throughout the planet, sparking outrage throughout the world in which people demanded an end to nuclear testing. This is the story of Tsar Bomba, a criminally underrepresented part of history. The 50s are coming to a close, and the US and the USSR are head-to-head in the nuclear arms race. In 1960, Khrushchev and Eisenhower met in Paris to discuss nuclear weapons, with the prospect of a test ban treaty to be signed. Unfortunately, the Soviets intercepted a US spy plane, the pilot of which admitted he worked for the CIA. This enraged Khrushchev, ending all possibilities for peace.
Andrei Sakharov, a Soviet physicist, was innately gifted in nuclear development. He created the layer cake, better known as the first Soviet hydrogen bomb, only a few months after his graduation. The bomb was developed and tested, immediately putting the Soviets on the map as a nuclear threat. This event put Sakharov in Khrushchev's spotlight for future nuclear development.
In 1961, JFK and Khrushchev agreed to attend a meeting in Paris with prospects of peace. However, Khrushchev barged in with strong statements on how the US's actions regarding Berlin could result in war. This was motivated by his belief that JFK was young and inexperienced. Unsettled, Kennedy later said to a New York Times magazine author, "I talked about how a nuclear exchange would kill 70 million people in 10 minutes, and he just looked at me as if to say, so what? I never met a man like this."
Despite all the briefings about what a crude, emotional peasant Khrushchev was, Kennedy couldn't have been prepared for what he was up against. Khrushchev thought of him as young, weak, ineffective, and probably a pushover.
Khrushchev summoned his lead nuclear physicist, Andrei Sakharov, to the Kremlin, and he pitched him the Tsar Bomba. Khrushchev wants to show the might of the USSR, so he tells Sakharov to build a 100-megaton bomb. Castle Bravo, the largest American nuke, is only 15 megatons, and it required mass evacuations of the surrounding islands as it left nuclear fallout so powerful that Bikini Atoll's inhabitants are still being affected by the weapon.
Sakharov was mortified at the idea of a 100-megaton bomb and pleaded with Khrushchev to reconsider. Unfortunately, Khrushchev was firm in his decision and commanded Sakharov to assemble a team and begin working immediately. The real challenge whilst building was Sakharov's conscience, which could only consider how many lives the bomb might kill. Still, construction continued. Khrushchev had placed a strict deadline on the physicists, causing immense mental issues for many designing the weapon. Despite the mental challenges, the scientists had planned for the bomb to be carried on a specially modified Tu-95V bomber, which would fly it over Novaya Zemlya to be detonated. The plane would release the bomb, after which it would slowly descend with the help of a parachute. The bomb would be detonated whilst in midair rather than an on-ground impact. These two decisions were primarily made for the safety of the prize, as it was believed that they had a 50-50 chance of survival.
As a last-minute decision, Khrushchev permitted Sakharov to have the size of the blast. This, coupled with the fact that it was a relatively clean weapon, drastically changed the outcome of the bomb and greatly decreased its planned destruction.
On October 30th, 1961, at 11:32 a.m. Moscow time, the Tsar Bomba was detonated 4,000 meters over Novaya Zemlya. As soon as it was detonated, it created a fireball so powerful that its light traveled over 630 meters away, causing instant blindness to anyone who looked at it. The flash lasted for an entire minute. This flash would then superheat its entire radius to 100 million degrees Fahrenheit. For comparison, the core of the sun is only 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. After this, Tsar Bomba's fireball will begin to expand at several million miles per hour, eventually sustaining a radius of about 4 meters. The ground within a 22-mile radius is leveled, and any rocks, trees, or structures are instantly vaporized, turning the once icy land into a scorching mess. 35 seconds later, the mushroom cloud would balloon over the island. It was about 40 miles high, which is equivalent to 7 Mount Everests. This cloud will crash through the stratosphere and impale the mesosphere.
These events create a shockwave so powerful that it circles the world 3 times, whilst creating earthquakes in areas as far away as Japan and New Zealand. The explosion was recorded by the Seismological Observatory at Uppsala, Sweden. The French detection services recorded blast waves from Novaya Zemlya region in the Arctic. The explosion was also reported to have been recorded by the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Service in Tokyo, Japan. The shockwaves started arriving at about 13 AH-16 MGMT. Back on the island, homes in the abandoned city of Severny, which is 35 miles away, are decimated. 714 miles away in Soviet territory, homes collapse, and radio broadcasts are destroyed. 830 miles away, windows in Sweden and Finland are shattered. Subsequently, if Tsar Bomba were dropped on New York City, it would level it. Buildings in areas such as Bayonne, East Orange, and Elizabeth would collapse. Hoboken would be destroyed, and people in Trenton would experience first-degree burns.
Very soon after the Tsar Bomba was launched, the White House announced the detonation and labeled it as an act of terrorism by the Soviets, as it put thousands of people at risk for a political stunt. The Soviet explosion was a political rather than a military act. Any such weapon would be primarily a massacre of people in war, and the testing of this device would primarily be an incitement to fright and panic in the Cold War. Despite the U.S. outwardly criticizing the Tsar Bomba, Edward Teller, the creator of the first hydrogen bomb, began to work with the U.S. government to design Sundial. This theorized weapon was planned to contain 10 gigatons of TNT, which would have been large enough to destroy more than half of the U.S. and was considered a world ender. Thankfully, the construction of this bomb never began.
A month after the nuke was detonated, about 50,000 women from 60 cities in the U.S. joined together to protest against nuclear arms. The event was planned by the Women's Strike for Peace organization. Even though the march was organized before the Tsar Bomba was launched, its destruction caused even more people to join the protest. In response, the Kennedy administration released a speech stating that they would create a peaceful America to end unnecessary war.
On August 5, 1963, the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom sent representatives to Moscow, where they signed the Partial Test Ban Treaty, PTBT. Otherwise known as the Limited Test Ban Treaty, LTBT. The agreement aimed to reduce nuclear weapon testing and its environmental impact. This settlement prevented the countries from testing weapons in the atmosphere, the ocean, and on land. Underground testing is still generally allowed, but limited. If such explosions cause radioactive debris to be present outside the territorial limits of the state under whose jurisdiction or control such explosion is conducted. Today, 187 countries have signed the PTBT, but only 178 have ratified it.
After the Partial Test Ban Treaty was signed, several other treaties were created to limit nuclear weapon testing and reinforce a treaty. In 1967, the Outer Space Treaty was established. It prevented countries from using weapons of mass destruction in space, while also holding states responsible for any harmful contamination of space and celestial bodies. Later, the Threshold Test Ban Treaty was signed by the United States and the Soviet Union in 1974. The agreement established a nuclear threshold preventing tests with yields over 150 kilotons, equivalent to about 150,000 tons of TNT. As a companion to the TTBT, the new Peaceful Nuclear Explosion Treaty was signed. This settlement aimed to regulate nuclear explosions for peaceful purposes. Both TTBT and PNET were enacted in 1990 by the Soviet Union and the United States. Today, about 190 countries have signed all three listed treaties.
Today, the natives of Novaya Zemlya are still feeling the repercussions of their island being used as a nuclear test site for years. The natives have reported chromosomal diseases in their children. These disorders began to appear when the island was being used as a nuclear test site, but the disease is now thought to be hereditary, as it is still a common issue. Citizens on the coast near Novaya Zemlya in countries such as Sweden, Finland, and Norway have reported a higher risk of cancer in their people, with breast and bladder cancer being the most common. Reindeers have also been contaminated, and their meat is a staple part of many natives' diets.
Since Novaya Zemlya is an Arctic region, radiation from Tsar Bomba, as well as many other nuclear weapons, was trapped and frozen in surrounding glaciers. Today, due to rapid global warming, these glaciers are beginning to melt, releasing the radiation back into the Barents Sea. This was discovered during a month-long expedition to Novaya Zemlya, in which scientists found large amounts of frozen radiation beginning to seep into our oceans. This is beginning to contaminate our clean drinking water and seafood such as cod. This will cause unavoidable suffering to people around the world, as the genetic deformity rate will rise globally, cancer will become more common, and deadly illnesses will grow rampant. This is illustrated through the people of Novaya Zemlya, who are tragic victims of their own history. Over the course of 40 years, 132 nuclear explosions rocked the area. The beautiful cultural and historical monument has come to be known as the Archipelago of Death.
Today, the ICAN leads the anti-nuclear movement, demanding that the countries stand against nuclear weapons and dismantle their own. Furthermore, the International Space Treaty is being heavily debated, as many governments and private companies such as TransAstra and the US are eager to begin operating in space. However, the Outer Space Treaty currently prevents these groups from engaging in activities such as asteroid mining, which may create hazardous debris. Ultimately, the doomsday clock sits at 89 seconds to midnight, which represents the very real looming threat of nuclear war, climate change, and biological threats, all of which the Tsar Bomba has greatly contributed to. Through this, it is evident that Tsar Bomba not only reformed our understanding of nuclear technology and spurred diverse reactions, but also revolutionized our modern world. But whether it created a world in which we fully dismantle nuclear technology or accept it remains to be seen.